I don't think a single investor should have to roll the dice on their financial freedom.
So next I'm going to talk about how we value multifamily properties 2 to 4 units. And again, I'm going to stay away from the cap rate discussion. Cap rates are applied to more complex properties. This is how we value 2 to 4 units. And the reason that this calculation is so simple is that for 2 to 4 units, your expenses are not significantly varied. You don't have pools necessarily, you don't have elevators, you don't have a lot of common areas. So it's very easy to apply a standardized income factor to 2 to 4 units without worrying a bunch about expenses. And so when we value 2 to 4 unit properties, what we use is a gross rent multiplier, or if you're a broker and you're dealing with the multiple listing service, and a lot of investors will use a gross income multiplier. Those are the same interchangeable terms in terms of the methodology, but a GRM is a monthly factor and a GIM is an annual factor. So the way that this calculation works is if you're using GRM, which is the monthly factor, you take the gross monthly rent times the GRM and get the value. And it's as simple as that. With the GIM, you take the gross annual rent times the GIM and get the value. And it makes it a little more confusing to talk about both of these at once, but the reason I like to do this is in the appraisal world, we use GRM, and I think that is important to know the difference. But when I talk to investors, when I talk to brokers, when I just talk generically to folks about income multipliers, they're usually talking in terms of GIM. They say, oh, well, that was a 10 multiplier. I'm scratching my head. I'm like, oh, you're talking about GIM. So that it is important to understand the difference between the two, but they are the same exact calculation. It's your gross income, whether it's monthly or annually, times the factor. And this gives you an example, just a hypothetical example of a duplex, $800 per unit in rent times 2, and then how that monthly and annual factor are getting calculated there. And the reason this is so important, as you can imagine, is that when this factor changes, if this factor changes, you might have some value implications there.
I don't think a single investor should have to roll the dice on their financial freedom.